Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Board Gaming Doctor. My name is Phil, and I'll be your Board Game Doctor today. In this quick video, I'm going to go over my first impressions and review of the Fellowship of the Ring, the trick-taking game. So I have the physical version of this game, but I wanted to show you with the tabletop simulator version of it, and I have played through chapter 4 or 5. I forget which exactly, but here is the first chapter, so no spoilers. Obviously, this is based off of the Fellowship of the Ring book, and yeah, so it's a trick-taking game very akin to The Crew, where for the most part, what you're trying to do is achieve the goal that is listed on every character card that is in play. For example, with Frodo, he needs to win 4 or more ring cards, right? If you look at my hand, the deck is made up of 4 different suits representing mountains, hills, forests, and the shadow. But also you have these ring cards here, and Frodo also has the One Ring, which is like the trump of all cards, right? And there are some other minor, rules here in play, but it's basically the same thing as any other trick-taking game. But as you progress through the story, additional characters will be introduced, and the plot will continue with this game, utilizing, story aspects of the book, including Tom Bombadil and other characters that aren't in the movies, or at least the, Peter Jackson movies, if you're referring to those. And you progress through the story of the first book of The Lord of the Rings while doing a trick-taking, having a trick-taking, aspect to that. It is a cooperative game, so everyone plays at the same time, or on the same team. And the interesting thing about this game, too, that I will mention is that at 2 players, you can include a kind of pyramid-style bot player that one player would control in addition to their own cards to make the game playable as a 2-player trick-taking cooperative game. And the same can be done with a solo game as well. There are some additional rules for that. So this is a very versatile game that can be played from 1 to 4 players. So going into the pros and cons for the trick-taking game based off of comments made on Board Game Geek, a lot of people really enjoyed this game for the production quality. The cards, the components were really nice looking as well. If you're familiar with The Crew, which is another trick-taking cooperative game with limited communication, this feels a lot like that, but with an IP that might appeal to more to others. Like if you're a fan of The Lord of the Rings, then this is The Crew essentially with Lord of the Rings. The progression through the story and the thematic integration of that is something that a lot of people enjoyed, and therefore it's pretty easy to learn and play because you might have an idea of what is going on because of the story. And if you are, once again, engaged with the story and know what is going on, that it might be pretty easy to get into. Some people did not feel like the 2-player mode was great. Since it is a pyramid scheme, it's probably pretty easy to understand and communicate what you might need that AI to do, for you to win the scenario. People think it feels very similar to The Crew, and this is comparing The Crew, both the first game as well as the Deep Sea standalone sequel to that as well. And there's some other usability issues. Some people had some issues with the components, the box size as well. You can't really fit the sleeves cards, right? The campaign itself, too, once you play through the campaign, there is a way to replay the game, but you're essentially playing through the same scenarios, back to back. So it feels very similar to the first Crew in that regard. And if you aren't as excited to play through another scenario, yes, there are some ways to modulate the difficulty and try to achieve a certain score, and so that challenge is there, but you're essentially playing through the same thing, and it's like playing through the mission log of the original Crew, but through the story of the Fellowship of the Ring. So my ranking after a couple of plays is a 6.6 out of 10. So it is a trick-taking game. It's a lighter game, of course, and the caveat is that I've only played, the first quarter or so of the game, and so it's, there are plenty of surprises left, and I'm really excited to go into it. One of my highest ratings here is the fun factor. This is a fun game. I really enjoyed playing this with other people and exploring and reliving the story told through the mechanism of trick taking. And I think everything was well produced and well thought through and well done. It's bringing a lot of the elements that I remember from the books that I really enjoyed, especially the first part of the Fellowship of the Ring. I really have come to appreciate that, and I think I've really enjoyed the implementation of that story into this game, which is not often seen in other games of the Lord of the Rings, especially the first book. Now, yes, this is a pretty easy game to learn. It was really easy for us to teach other folks who did not understand or even know what a trick taking game was. And so, you know, teaching that mechanism was pretty straightforward. And the intro missions really step you into that. And so this has a great potential for a wider audience who are newer to trick taking games to really understand. I think my personal issues is that I really have an issue with games that are kind of one and done. Like I'm not going to go back to The Crew because I've played through all the missions. Not that it had much of a story anyway, but I would rather play a game that had a more numerable amount of variations in what you can do, such as The Crew Deep Sea. So that game has a much more modular way and I guess a more open-ended way to play the game on a regular basis, right? And I believe that I think you can do the same with Lord of the Rings as well, but I think the main focus is going to be that story that you're playing through. And I'm excited to see how this, I'm assuming this will continue through books 2 and 3, but I feel like personally, once I've gone through the story, I'm not going to be motivated to play through the challenges and the different difficulties as well, unless I had a dedicated group who want to really try to tackle this trick-taking challenge, right? It's not going to be my first choice, but I suppose I would be welcome to do so, especially in nights like a weeknight where there is a limited amount of time to play a game. You could easily pull out this game and set up a few scenarios and challenges and play through that. So overall, and actually I will say that I did enjoy the two-player system. I thought it was an interesting way to introduce more player interaction in a non-communicative game where someone would have to control that second character, and I guess it gives you more information to hopefully try to communicate in a non-verbal way what that pyramid player, that AI player essentially would try to do. So I really enjoyed that, and I think that is something that is more unique officially to this game versus The Crew. I don't believe The Crew Deep Sea has a two-player variant in it. I think it's still strictly 3 players and up, right? 3 to 5, I believe. And so this game does that, and it offers the opportunity to experience this solo or even 2-player, which is awesome. So mechanically, very great. In comparison to other trick-taking games, I don't know, especially with the later chapters, if those offer a more of a challenging experience that would make trick-taking veterans happy. I haven't gotten there yet. But either way, I would still enjoy reliving this story at least once and playing through, and I think it's a well-implemented game to do so. It's relatively cheap. It's a bunch of cards and a few components, and so I think it's worth the money that I've spent to experience this, and will continue to experience this as I play through the story, the campaign, right? But afterwards, it might just be a fun piece to keep on the mantle and bring out once in a while once I've forgotten what the chapters were like and the experiences were, and therefore it could feel a lot more fresh. So so it is a fun game despite the rating that I'm giving it. The rating that I give these games really encompasses what I try to look for in a wide variety of games, whether they're light or heavy. And sometimes I guess I'm more biased and skewed towards the heavy side. And so it's not the most brain-burning experience because you can play through hands pretty quick. But, for what it is, I think it's a lot of fun. And if you're a fan of Lord of the Rings and card games, I think you would enjoy this as well. So those are my first impressions and thoughts on the Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring trick-taking game. Go check it out if you are interested, and let me know if you've played it and what your thoughts are. Thank you for consulting with me today, and hope you schedule an appointment with me real soon. Take care.